The bruise around her eye was turning from purple to yellow at its edges, and Nathan Harding noticed it the moment she stepped off the train onto the wooden platform of Prescott, Arizona territory. It was late October 1878, and the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the depot while dust swirled around the departing locomotive. He had come into town for supplies, his wagon hitched outside the general store, but something about the way this woman held herself made him pause. She was young, maybe 23 or 24, with auburn hair pinned beneath a simple bonnet, and despite the injury marring her face, she carried herself with a dignity that spoke of inner strength. Her dress was modest, dark blue calico that had seen better days, and she clutched a single worn carpetbag as though it contained everything she owned in the world. Nathan stood a full 6 feet 4 inches, with shoulders broad enough to block out the sun and arms thick with muscle from years of working his mountain claim and hauling timber. His dark brown hair fell past his collar, and his beard was neatly trimmed despite his solitary lifestyle. At 28, he had lived alone in the mountains for 5 years, content with the company of his 2 horses and the occasional trip to town. But something about this woman stirred something in his chest that he had long thought dormant. She looked around the platform with uncertainty, and Nathan could see the moment panic began to set in. There was no one there to meet her. She set down her bag and opened a small reticule, pulling out a piece of paper that she studied with increasing distress. Her hands trembled slightly, and Nathan found himself walking toward her before he had fully decided to do so. "Excuse me, miss," he said, keeping his voice gentle despite its natural rumble. "Are you waiting for someone?" She looked up at him, and he saw her good eye widen slightly at his size. He was used to that reaction. Most people found him intimidating at first glance, but then she seemed to collect herself, squaring her shoulders. "I was supposed to meet a Mrs. Henderson. I answered her advertisement for a companion and teacher for her children. But I do not see anyone here matching the description she gave in her letters." Her voice was cultured, educated with a slight accent that suggested she had come from back east. Nathan frowned. "Mrs. Henderson? That would be Marjorie Henderson, I suppose. Lives about 3 miles outside town." He hesitated, then spoke the truth gently. "I am sorry to tell you this, miss, but Mrs. Henderson passed away about 2 months back. Fever took her and her youngest daughter both." The color drained from the woman's face, and for a moment Nathan thought she might faint. He reached out instinctively to steady her, but she stepped back, a flash of fear crossing her features that made his gut tighten with anger at whoever had put it there. "I apologize," she said quickly. "I am quite all right. It is just that I have traveled for 3 weeks to get here, and I have nowhere else to go." She said it matter-of-factly, but he could hear the desperation underneath. "What is your name?" he asked. "Beatrice Lawson. I came from Philadelphia." She touched her face self-consciously, as though suddenly remembering the bruise. "I know I must look frightful. You look like someone who has had a hard journey," Nathan said carefully. "My name is Nathan Harding. I have a homestead up in the mountains about 10 miles north of here. It is not much, but it is safe, and you would be welcome to rest there until you figure out what you want to do next. I give you my word that no harm would come to you." She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her weighing her options. A woman alone in a frontier town with no money and no prospects had few choices, and most of them were not good. "Why would you offer this to a complete stranger?" she asked. "Because you need help, and I am in a position to offer it," he said simply. "And because whoever gave you that black eye should be horsewhipped, and I will be damned if I stand by and watch you come to more harm when I could prevent it." Something in his words seemed to reach her, and her eyes filled with tears that she blinked back rapidly. "You are very kind, Mr. Harding. I accept your offer, but only temporarily. I will find a way to repay you for your hospitality." "There is no debt," Nathan said firmly. "Now, I need to finish my supply run and then we will head up to the homestead before dark. Are you hungry?" "I have not eaten since yesterday morning," she admitted quietly. Nathan felt another surge of protective anger. "Come with me. We will get you fed first, then handle the supplies." The small restaurant attached to the boarding house served simple but hearty fare, and Nathan watched as Beatrice tried to eat slowly and maintain her composure, though he could tell she was famished. He ordered her a second plate when the first disappeared, ignoring her protests about the expense. "Tell me to mind my own business if you want," he said after she had taken the edge off her hunger. "But how did you get that bruise?" Beatrice set down her fork carefully, and he saw her hands clench in her lap. "I was engaged to be married to a man in Philadelphia, James Norton. He was a banker, very well respected in our community. My parents thought it was an excellent match." She paused, her voice going flat. "He was charming in public, but behind closed doors he had a terrible temper. The engagement lasted 4 months. The first time he struck me was after I expressed an opinion about something he disagreed with. He apologized profusely, bought me flowers, swore it would never happen again." Nathan felt his jaw tighten, but he remained silent, letting her speak. "It happened again, and again. The last time was 5 days before our wedding was to take place. I told him I could not marry him, that I was ending the engagement. He did not take it well." She gestured to her face. "This was his parting gift." "My parents were horrified, not by his actions, but by my refusal to go through with the wedding. They said I was being dramatic, that all men had tempers, that I would learn to manage him better once we were married. So I took what money I had saved, packed my bag, and left. I saw Mrs. Henderson's advertisement in a newspaper at the train station and wrote to her immediately. She seemed kind in her letters. She said she needed someone to help with her children's education and to provide companionship. It seemed like Providence." "I am sorry," Nathan said, meaning it. "You deserve better than what he did to you. What your parents did too, for that matter." She looked at him with surprise, as though she had expected judgment or dismissal. "You believe me. Why would you lie? And I have seen enough of the world to know that evil often wears a respectable face." He leaned forward slightly. "I meant what I said on the platform, Miss Lawson. No hand will harm you again, not while I am around to prevent it. You have my word on that." Tears spilled down her cheeks then, and she wiped them away quickly. "I do not know what to say. You are a stranger, yet you have shown me more kindness in an hour than my own family did in months." "Then your family are fools," Nathan said bluntly. "Now finish eating. We have a bit of a ride ahead of us, and I want to get home before full dark." The ride up into the mountains was beautiful, and Beatrice found herself relaxing despite her circumstances. Nathan drove the wagon with easy competence, pointing out landmarks and telling her about the area. The aspens were turning gold and the air was crisp and clean, scented with pine. She learned that he had come west after serving in the army, that he had claimed land in the mountains and built his cabin with his own hands, that he made his living hunting, trapping, and selling timber to the sawmill in town. "You not get lonely?" she asked. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I like the quiet. I like the work. After years of taking orders and seeing too much death, the solitude suits me." His cabin, when they reached it, was larger than she had expected. It was solidly built of thick logs with a stone chimney and real glass windows. The setting was breathtaking, perched on a hillside with a view of the valley below and mountains rising all around. There was a barn for the horses, a chicken coop, and a well with a pump. "I know it is not fancy," Nathan said as he helped her down from the wagon, his hands careful and respectful. but it is warm and dry and sturdy. It is wonderful, Beatrice said honestly. After weeks of travel and the chaos of the last few months, the peaceful isolation looked like paradise. Inside, the cabin was neat and surprisingly comfortable. There was a main room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen area with a cast iron stove, and two smaller rooms that served as bedrooms. The furniture was handmade but well crafted, and everything was clean if sparse. "You can have the back bedroom," Nathan said, carrying in her bag. "I will sleep out here by the fire. Tomorrow we can figure out a better arrangement if you decide to stay for a while." "Mr. Harding, I could not take your bedroom. I am already imposing terribly." "It is just Nathan, please, and you are not imposing. I offered, remember." "Now I will get the fire going and make some coffee. You should rest. You have had a long day." Beatrice wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up with her. The small bedroom had a real bed with a feather mattress, a washstand with a pitcher and basin, and a trunk for storage. It was simple but clean, and after weeks of sleeping on trains and in cheap hotels, it looked incredibly inviting. She washed her face carefully, wincing when she touched the bruise, then lay down just for a moment. She was asleep within minutes. When she woke, it was fully dark and she could hear Nathan moving around in the main room. She got up and ventured out, finding him cooking something that smelled wonderful at the stove. "I am sorry," she said. "I did not mean to sleep so long." He turned and smiled, and she was struck by how much younger and gentler he looked when he smiled. "You needed the rest. I am making venison stew. It will be ready soon. How are you feeling?" "Better. Much better, actually. Thank you for your patience with me." They ate together at the sturdy table, and Beatrice found conversation flowing easily. Nathan was well-read despite his solitary lifestyle, and he was genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. It was such a stark contrast to James, who had never wanted to hear anything she had to say unless it was agreement with his own views. They talked about books, about the differences between city life and frontier life, about the beauty of the Arizona territory. "I need to tell you something," Nathan said after they had cleaned up from dinner. "There is a U.S. Marshal who passes through this area occasionally. His name is Tom Crawford. He is a good man, honest and fair. If you wanted to press charges against the man who hurt you, Crawford could help with that." Beatrice shook her head slowly. "I appreciate the thought, but James comes from a powerful family. No one would believe me over him. And honestly, I just want to leave that life behind. I want to start fresh here if I can." Nathan nodded, though she could see he was not entirely happy with that answer. "That is your choice, and I will respect it. But if he ever shows up here looking for you, he will find himself on the wrong end of a very unpleasant conversation." The protective fierceness in his voice made her feel safer than she had in months. "I cannot imagine he would follow me this far. He was angry that I dared to refuse him, but I doubt his pride would allow him to chase after me. He will find some other poor woman to torment." Over the next few days, they fell into an easy routine. Nathan was up early each morning to tend the animals and check his trap lines. Beatrice insisted on helping with the cooking and cleaning, refusing to be a burden. She was surprised to discover how much she enjoyed the simple domestic tasks. In Philadelphia, there had always been servants to do the real work. Here, she felt useful and needed in a way she never had before. Nathan treated her with unfailing respect and gentleness, never crowding her, always giving her space. She noticed how careful he was never to make sudden movements around her, how he always made sure she was comfortable with any situation before proceeding. It made her heart ache to think that he felt he had to be so careful, but she understood why. James had left scars that went deeper than the fading bruise on her face. One morning, about a week after her arrival, Beatrice woke to find fresh snow dusting the ground. Nathan was already outside splitting firewood, and she stood at the window watching him work. His breath made clouds in the cold air, and his muscles flexed with each swing of the axe. She realized with a start that she was attracted to him, genuinely attracted in a way that was different from anything she had felt for James. With James, it had been the appeal of his social standing and the approval of her parents. With Nathan, it was something deeper and more real. She admired his strength, yes, but also his kindness and his quiet confidence. He did not need to dominate or control to feel like a man. He was secure in himself, and that security allowed him to be gentle. When he came inside, stomping snow off his boots, she had hot coffee waiting. "Thank you," he said, wrapping his large hands around the mug. "Winter is coming early this year. We might be snowed in for stretches once it really starts." "Is there anything we need from town?" Beatrice asked. "I would hate for you to be short on supplies because of me." "I have everything I need. I always stock up well before winter. But if you want to go into town, we should do it soon before the roads get too bad. You might want to check if there are any other job opportunities available." Beatrice felt a pang in her chest at the thought of leaving. "Do you want me to leave?" Nathan looked startled. "No, that is not what I meant at all. I just do not want you to feel trapped here. You are welcome to stay as long as you want, through the winter and beyond if that suits you. I just wanted you to know you have options." "I would like to stay," she said quietly. "If you are certain I am not imposing, I feel safer here than I have felt in a very long time." Something warm and tender crossed his face. "Then stay. I would be glad of the company." They did make one trip to town before the heavy snows came. Nathan needed to deliver some furs to the trading post, and Beatrice wanted to inquire about any mail or news. While Nathan conducted his business, Beatrice wandered through the general store, marveling at how different shopping was here compared to the fancy stores in Philadelphia. "You must be new in town," a friendly voice said. Beatrice turned to find a woman about her own age with warm brown eyes and a kind smile. "I am Sarah Mitchell. My husband owns the Mercantile. Beatrice Lawson. I am staying with Nathan Harding for a while." Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly, but there was no judgment in her expression. "Nathan is a good man. Keeps to himself mostly, but he is always fair in his dealings, and he helped my husband build the new addition to the store last spring." "Are you family?" "No, just a friend," Beatrice said, though the word felt inadequate for what Nathan had become to her. "He was kind enough to offer me a place to stay when my original employment fell through." Sarah nodded knowingly. "That sounds like Nathan. If you need anything, or if you just want some female company, please come by. It can get lonely out here, especially in winter. Though I suspect you will have plenty of time to get to know Nathan better. He is a quiet one, but he has a good heart." When they left town, the wagon was loaded with a few luxuries that Nathan had insisted on buying despite Beatrice's protests. There was real sugar, some store-bought fabric that would make a new dress, and a book of poetry that he had seen her admiring. "You did not have to do all this," she said. "I know," he replied. "I wanted to." The first real snowstorm came in mid-November, and it snowed for 3 days straight. They were trapped in the cabin together, but it was not the uncomfortable confinement Beatrice had feared. Instead, it felt cozy and intimate. They played cards, read aloud to each other, and talked for hours. Nathan told her about his childhood on a farm in Missouri, about losing his parents to cholera, about the war and the things he had seen that still haunted him sometimes. Beatrice told him about her privileged but stifling upbringing, about her dreams of being a teacher, about the loneliness of being an only child with parents who valued appearance over substance. "You ever regret leaving?" Nathan asked one evening as they sat by the fire. Not for a single moment, Beatrice said honestly. I miss what I wished my parents could be, but not what they actually were. And I do not miss James at all. Being here with you, this is the first time in my life I have felt truly free. Nathan reached over and took her hand, his large palm engulfing hers. It was the first time he had initiated such contact, and Beatrice's heart raced, though not with fear. I am glad you came here, Beatrice. I know the circumstances were bad, but I cannot help being grateful that they led you to my door. She squeezed his hand. I am grateful too. They sat like that for a long time, hands clasped, watching the fire. It felt like a turning point, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing between them since that first day on the train platform. Winter deepened, and with it, so did the bond between them. Nathan taught Beatrice to snowshoe, to ice fish in the frozen stream, to identify animal tracks in the snow. She taught him the classical literature he had never had the opportunity to study, shared her knowledge of mathematics and history, helped him improve his already decent cooking. They worked side by side on daily chores, and the cabin felt more like a home than a shelter. One particularly cold night in December, Beatrice woke to the sound of Nathan crying out in his sleep. She wrapped a blanket around herself and hurried out to the main room, where he had insisted on continuing to sleep despite the cold. He was thrashing in his bedroll near the fire, clearly in the grip of a nightmare. Nathan, she said gently, kneeling beside him but not touching him, remembering how he had been careful with her. Nathan, wake up, you are safe, you are home. His eyes flew open, wild and unseeing for a moment, and then focused on her. He sat up abruptly, breathing hard. I am sorry. I did not mean to wake you. Do not apologize. Are you all right? He ran a hand through his hair, looking shaken. Just old memories. They come back sometimes in dreams. The war. Things I saw, things I did. Beatrice did something she had never done before. She reached out and pulled him into an embrace. For a moment he stiffened in surprise, and then his arms came around her, and he held her like she was an anchor in a storm. They stayed like that for a long time, taking comfort in each other's presence. Thank you, he said finally, his voice rough. I am all right now. I know what it is like, Beatrice said softly, to be haunted by the past. Some nights I still wake up thinking I hear James's footsteps, still feel his hand striking me. But then I remember where I am, that I am safe, that you are here. It helps. Nathan cupped her face gently with one large hand, careful of the bruise that had finally faded completely. You are safe, Beatrice. I swear to you, no one will ever hurt you like that again, not while I draw breath. She turned her face into his palm, kissing it softly. I believe you. And you are safe too, Nathan. The war is over. You are home. They sat together by the dying fire until both of them were calm, and then Nathan insisted she go back to the warm bedroom while he rebuilt the fire. But something had shifted between them that night, another wall come down. Christmas came, and they celebrated simply but joyfully. Nathan had shot a turkey, and Beatrice made a feast with their stored supplies. They exchanged small gifts. Nathan had carved her a beautiful jewelry box from cedar wood, the lid decorated with a mountain scene. Beatrice had used the fabric he had bought to make him 2 new shirts, painstakingly stitching them by firelight while he was out checking his traps. These are beautiful, Nathan said, clearly moved. I have not had anything so fine in years. You deserve fine things, Beatrice said. You are one of the best men I have ever known, Nathan Harding. He looked at her then with such intensity that her breath caught. Beatrice, I need to tell you something. I know it might be too soon, and if you are not ready to hear it, I will wait. But I cannot let another day pass without being honest with you. What is it? She asked, though her heart was already racing because she thought she knew. "I am falling in love with you. I think I started falling the moment I saw you step off that train, looking so brave despite everything. Every day since then, you have amazed me with your strength and your kindness and your spirit. I know you came here to escape one man who wanted to possess you, and I swear I would never try to cage you or control you. But if you could ever feel the same way about me, if you could ever see me as more than just a friend who offered you shelter, it would make me the happiest man alive." Tears streamed down Beatrice's face, but they were happy tears. "Oh, Nathan, I do love you. I think I have been falling in love with you for weeks now, but I was afraid to admit it, afraid you might think I was just grateful or confused. But this is real. What I feel for you is more real than anything I have ever felt before. You make me feel safe and valued and seen in a way no one ever has." Nathan stood and crossed to her, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. "May I kiss you?" he asked, ever the gentleman. "Please," she whispered. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as though he was afraid of frightening her. But Beatrice had no fear of Nathan. She kissed him back with all the love and passion she had been holding in, and his arms tightened around her, lifting her right off her feet. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard and smiling. "Marry me," Nathan said. "I know it is fast, but I am certain. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Beatrice. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to build a life with you here in these mountains. Will you have me?" "Yes," Beatrice said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you, Nathan. Nothing would make me happier." They held each other for a long time, swaying gently in the firelight, both marveling at how their lives had changed. Beatrice thought about the train platform, about how lost and afraid she had been. And now here she was, engaged to a man she loved deeply, feeling more at home than she ever had in Philadelphia. "We will have to wait until spring to get married properly," Nathan said practically. "The preacher only makes it up to Prescott every few months, and with the snow, we cannot count on him until April or May. But I want everyone to know you are mine and I am yours." "I do not need a wedding to know that," Beatrice said. "But I would like to stand before God and witnesses and make it official. I want to be Mrs. Nathan Harding." He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she felt heat pooling in her belly that was entirely new and wonderful, but Nathan pulled back with obvious effort. "We should wait until we are properly married. I want to do this right, Beatrice. You deserve that respect." She appreciated his honor even as her body protested. "You are a good man, Nathan Harding. I try to be, especially for you." The rest of the winter passed in a haze of happiness. They were engaged now, and though they maintained propriety by sleeping separately, they were far less restrained with their affection during the day. Nathan stole kisses while Beatrice was cooking. Beatrice would wrap her arms around his waist from behind while he worked at his carving. They held hands constantly, touched each other whenever they passed, and spent long evenings planning their future together. "I want at least 3 children," Beatrice announced one night. "Maybe 4. "That sounds perfect," Nathan agreed. "Strong sons to help work the land, beautiful daughters who take after their mother." "What if the sons are beautiful and the daughters are strong?" Nathan laughed, a sound that Beatrice had come to treasure. He laughed so much more now than he had when she first arrived. "Then they will be perfect either way. I just want them to be healthy and happy." "They will be," Beatrice said confidently. "How could they not be with you as a father? You are patient and kind and wise. You will teach them to be good people." "We will teach them together," Nathan corrected. "You are going to be a wonderful mother, Beatrice. Our children will be so lucky to have you." In late February, during a brief warming spell, they made the trip into town. Nathan wanted to file for a marriage license and make their engagement official. They also needed more supplies, and Nathan wanted to commission a proper wedding ring from the blacksmith who did metalwork on the side. The news of their engagement was met with happiness by the townspeople they had befriended. Sarah Mitchell hugged Beatrice tightly. "I am so happy for you both. Nathan deserves someone wonderful, and you deserve someone who will treat you right." The blacksmith, a burly man named Tom Rodriguez, agreed to make 2 rings from some gold Nathan had panned from the stream over the years. "I will make them special," he promised. "For Nathan, I will do my best work." They also learned that the preacher would be coming through in early May. "Book him now," the clerk at the general store advised. "Spring weddings are popular. Everyone who gets engaged over winter wants to get married as soon as the preacher arrives." Nathan paid the deposit without hesitation. "May 5th, he told Beatrice as they left. "That is going to be the best day of my life." "Mine too," she agreed, squeezing his arm. On the way home, their wagon crossed paths with a rider coming from the opposite direction. Nathan pulled up and Beatrice saw it was a man wearing a marshal's badge. He looked to be in his 40s with graying hair and a weathered face. "Nathan Harding," the marshal said with a nod. "Been a while." "Tom Crawford," Nathan replied. "This is my fiancée, Beatrice Lawson." "Beatrice, this is U.S. Marshal Crawford. We have crossed paths a few times over the years." Crawford tipped his hat politely. "Miss Lawson, pleased to meet you. Congratulations on your engagement. Nathan is a good man, one of the best." "Thank you, Marshal. I am very lucky." Crawford's eyes were sharp despite his friendly demeanor, and Beatrice saw him take note of the faint remaining discoloration around her eye that makeup could not quite hide. "If you do not mind me asking, miss, where are you from originally?" "Philadelphia," Beatrice said, wondering at the question. Crawford nodded slowly. "Thought that accent sounded Eastern. You would not happen to know a man named James Norton, would you?" Beatrice felt her blood run cold. "Why do you ask?" "Because I got a wire a few weeks back from the Philadelphia police. Seems Mr. Norton was found dead in his home back in December. Beaten to death, actually. The investigation is pointing toward a business partner who he had cheated, but Norton's family insisted that his fiancée be investigated as well. They claimed she had run off weeks before and might have sent someone to kill him." Crawford held up a hand at Beatrice's expression. "Now, I do not put much stock in that theory myself. Sounds like the family grasping at straws. But I did make note of the name, and when you said you were from Philadelphia, it rang a bell." Nathan's hand had moved to rest protectively on Beatrice's knee. "Beatrice had nothing to do with any murder. She left Philadelphia in late October and arrived here in Prescott on October 28th. I met her at the train station that very day, and she has been with me ever since. I can vouch for her whereabouts every single day." "Can anyone else verify she was on that train?" Crawford asked, but his tone was not accusatory, merely thorough. "The conductor would have records," Beatrice said, her voice shaking slightly. "And I stayed at a boarding house in St. Louis for 3 days while I waited for the connecting train west. Mrs. Abernathy, the proprietor, would remember me. I wrote letters to Mrs. Henderson from there." Crawford pulled out a small notebook and jotted down the information. "I will wire St. Louis and verify. But honestly, the timing does not work anyway. Norton was killed on December 10th. If you have been up at Nathan's place since October, there is no way you could have been involved. I just needed to follow up on the report." "Marshal," Nathan said carefully, "James Norton was the man who gave Beatrice that bruise. He was violent and cruel, and she left Philadelphia to escape him. Whatever happened to him, he brought it on himself through his own actions." Crawford's expression hardened. "I suspected something like that. And for what it is worth, Miss Lawson, The investigator's report noted that Norton had a reputation for gambling debts and shady business dealings. Sounds like he made a lot of enemies. The business partner theory is solid. They found evidence that Norton had embezzled nearly $50,000. You are not seriously considered a suspect. The family is just trying to cause trouble. Thank you for telling me, Marshal, Beatrice said quietly. It is strange to feel nothing at the news of his death. I do not wish him dead, but I cannot pretend I am sorry either. He was a cruel man. I understand completely, Crawford said. I will send the wires to verify your timeline, but I consider this matter closed as far as you are concerned. Congratulations again on your engagement. Take care of her, Nathan. Always, Nathan promised. As they drove away, Beatrice felt a weight lift from her shoulders. I did not wish him dead, she said again, as if she needed to convince herself. But knowing he can never come after me, that he can never hurt anyone else the way he hurt me, it is a relief. That is natural, Nathan assured her. You are allowed to feel relieved. His death is not your fault and his life was not your responsibility. You have every right to move forward without guilt. I love you, Beatrice said. Thank you for always knowing exactly what I need to hear. I love you too. And I meant what I told Crawford. I will always take care of you. That is a promise I will keep every day for the rest of our lives. Spring came slowly to the mountains, but when it arrived, it was glorious. The snow melted, revealing meadows full of wildflowers. The stream ran high and clear with snowmelt. Birds returned, filling the air with song. Nathan and Beatrice spent their days preparing for the wedding and working on improvements to the cabin. I want to add another room, Nathan said, for the nursery, and eventually we will need even more space. We have time, Beatrice laughed, but I love that you are thinking ahead. They planted a garden together, Beatrice grateful for the knowledge she had learned from the cook back in Philadelphia. Nathan taught her to shoot a rifle, insisting that she needed to know how to protect herself when he was away from the cabin. She proved to be a natural shot, and he beamed with pride at her skill. You are full of surprises, he told her after she hit 3 targets in a row. I had good motivation to learn, she said. I never want to be helpless again. Being able to take care of myself, to contribute equally to our partnership, it means everything to me. The first week of May arrived, and with it came the preacher, a circuit rider named Reverend Walsh, who traveled between the small settlements and mining camps providing spiritual guidance. He was a thin, serious man in his 50s, but he had kind eyes and a genuine warmth. I have performed many weddings in my time, he told Nathan and Beatrice during their brief meeting before the ceremony. But I can see that you two truly love each other. That is becoming rarer these days. Many frontier marriages are matters of convenience. Yours is clearly a matter of the heart. The wedding was held on a beautiful morning in early May, with the mountains as their backdrop and the entire population of Prescott invited. Sarah Mitchell had helped Beatrice make a dress from white muslin, simple but lovely, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Beatrice wore wildflowers in her hair. Nathan wore one of the shirts Beatrice had made him, along with new trousers he had purchased for the occasion. He looked impossibly handsome, and when Beatrice walked toward him through the assembled crowd, she saw tears in his eyes. They spoke their vows clearly and firmly, promising to love, honor, and cherish each other for all their days. When Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, Beatrice marveled at its beauty. The blacksmith had outdone himself, creating a simple gold band etched with tiny mountains. I now pronounce you husband and wife, Reverend Walsh said with satisfaction. Nathan, you may kiss your bride. Nathan gathered Beatrice into his arms and kissed her thoroughly, to the cheers and applause of their friends and neighbors. When they broke apart, both were grinning. Mrs. Harding, Nathan said, testing out the name. "Mr. Harding," Beatrice replied. "My husband." "My wife," he said, and kissed her again. The townspeople had arranged a celebration at the community hall, with music and dancing and food contributed by everyone. Beatrice was overwhelmed by the warmth and acceptance of these people who had been strangers just 6 months ago. They danced together, Nathan surprisingly graceful for such a large man, and Beatrice felt like she was floating. "I cannot wait to get you home," Nathan murmured in her ear during a slow dance. "To finally have you as my wife in every way." Beatrice blushed but met his eyes steadily. "I cannot wait either. I have been dreaming about it for months." They left the celebration in the late afternoon, eager to return to their cabin. The ride home seemed to take forever, both of them acutely aware of the new permission they had been granted by their marriage vows. When they finally arrived, Nathan surprised Beatrice by sweeping her into his arms and carrying her over the threshold. "Tradition," he explained with a grin. "I want to do everything right." He set her down gently inside, and for a moment they just looked at each other, suddenly shy. Then Beatrice reached up and began unbuttoning Nathan's shirt. "I love you," she said simply. "Show me how much you love me." Nathan needed no further invitation. He kissed her deeply, his hands moving to the buttons of her dress with surprising dexterity for such large fingers. "I have been imagining this since Christmas," he admitted. "I want to make you so happy, Beatrice. I want to show you that intimacy can be beautiful when it is with someone who truly loves you." She knew he was thinking of James, of the fear and pain that relationship had promised. But there was no fear now, only anticipation and love. "I trust you completely," she told him. Their wedding night was everything Beatrice had never known intimacy could be. Nathan was tender and passionate, taking his time, making sure of her pleasure before seeking his own. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed they would now share, both glowing with happiness. "That was perfect," Beatrice whispered. "You are perfect." "You are the perfect one," Nathan replied, kissing her forehead. "I cannot believe I get to spend the rest of my life loving you." "We are both very lucky," Beatrice said contentedly. They settled into married life with ease, having already spent months learning to live together. But now there was a new intimacy, a new closeness that made everything feel richer and more complete. Nathan continued his work hunting and trapping and selling timber, but he structured his schedule so he was never away from Beatrice for more than a day or two. She managed the household, tended the garden, and began writing letters to various schools and families in the area, offering her services as a tutor. By June, she had 3 students who came to the cabin twice a week for lessons. Nathan built a small schoolroom onto the cabin to accommodate them, proud of his wife's enterprise. By August, Beatrice had 8 students, and people were talking about trying to raise money for a proper schoolhouse in Prescott. "You are making a real difference," Nathan told her proudly. "These children would have no formal education without you." "It makes me happy," Beatrice said. "I love teaching. I love feeling useful and seeing the children learn and grow." In September, Beatrice began to suspect she might be pregnant. By October, a year after she had first arrived in Arizona Territory, the doctor from Prescott confirmed it. She was going to have a baby in the spring. Nathan was overwhelmed with joy, picking her up and spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "We are going to be parents," he kept saying. "We are going to have a family." "I hope the baby has your strength and your kindness," Beatrice said. "I hope the baby has your intelligence and your courage," Nathan countered. The pregnancy was relatively easy, and Beatrice continued teaching well into her 7th month. Nathan fussed over her constantly, making sure she was comfortable, doing extra chores so she could rest. He finished the nursery in March, painting it a cheerful yellow and building a cradle that was a work of art. Their son was born on a mild day in late April 1880 with Sarah Mitchell acting as midwife. The labor was long but uncomplicated, and when Nathan first held his son, Beatrice saw tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," Nathan whispered. "Absolutely perfect. Thank you for this gift, Beatrice. Thank you for giving me a family." They named him Andrew Nathan Harding, and he was indeed perfect. He had Nathan's dark hair and Beatrice's gray eyes, and he was strong and healthy from the start. Nathan was a devoted father, helping with everything from diaper changes to midnight feedings. He would sit for hours just holding Andrew, singing to him in a surprisingly pleasant baritone, telling him stories about the mountains and the animals. "You are going to be a wonderful big brother someday," Nathan told Andrew. "And you are going to help me teach your brothers and sisters about this beautiful land we live in." As Andrew grew from infant to toddler, Beatrice returned to her teaching, with Nathan caring for Andrew when she had lessons. They were a team in everything, supporting each other's dreams and goals. In the summer of 1882, their daughter was born. They named her Sarah Rose, after Sarah Mitchell and the wild roses that grew around their cabin. Sarah had Beatrice's auburn hair and Nathan's brown eyes, and she was a happy, cheerful baby who rarely cried. "Two perfect children," Nathan said one night as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, with Andrew playing at their feet and Sarah sleeping in Beatrice's arms. "I never imagined I could be this happy." "Neither did I," Beatrice admitted. "When I got off that train 2 years ago, I was running away from everything I knew, scared and alone. I had no idea that the best part of my life was about to begin." Nathan took her hand, his thumb rubbing over her wedding ring. "That day is burned into my memory. I saw you step off that train with that bruise on your face, and something inside me just knew that you were going to change my life. I made a promise to myself right then that I would protect you, that no one would ever hurt you again. I had no idea I would fall so completely in love with you." "You have kept that promise," Beatrice said softly. "Every single day you have kept that promise. You have made me feel safe and loved and valued. You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. I love you so much, Nathan. I love you too, more than words can express." In 1883, the town of Prescott held an election for the new territorial legislature, and Nathan was nominated to represent the mountain region. He was reluctant at first, but Beatrice encouraged him. "You have lived here for years. You know the land and the people. You would be a voice for those who might otherwise go unheard. And I will be right beside you, supporting you every step of the way." Nathan won the election, and though it meant more trips to Prescott and occasionally to Phoenix for legislative sessions, he managed to balance his political duties with his family responsibilities. Beatrice continued teaching and became increasingly involved in efforts to establish formal schools throughout the territory. Their third child, a son they named Thomas James, was born in 1884. Beatrice had insisted on using James as a middle name despite Nathan's surprise. "I am not letting that man's memory have any more power over me," she explained. "He was part of my journey to you, but that is all he was. This James will be loved and protected, everything the other James was not. It is a way of reclaiming the name, making it mean something good." Nathan understood and agreed. Thomas was a robust baby who looked like a perfect blend of both parents. By 1885, their cabin had been expanded several times and was now a comfortable family home. The school in Prescott had been built, with Beatrice as its first permanent teacher. Nathan's political career was flourishing, and he was being mentioned as a possible candidate for territorial governor when Arizona eventually achieved statehood. But despite their success and growing prominence, they never forgot where they had started. Every year on their anniversary, Nathan and Beatrice would return to the train depot in Prescott, the place where they had first met. "I will never forget seeing you stand on that platform," Nathan always said. "I will never forget making that promise to myself that no one would ever hurt you again." "And you kept that promise," Beatrice always replied. "You have been keeping it for 7 years now, every single day." In October of 1885, 7 years after Beatrice had arrived in Arizona Territory, they stood on that same platform while their 3 children played nearby under Sarah Mitchell's watchful eye. They were there to welcome a new arrival, a young woman who had answered Beatrice's advertisement for an assistant teacher. She stepped off the train looking frightened and alone, and Beatrice recognized that expression immediately. "Welcome to Prescott," Beatrice said warmly, approaching the woman. "I am Beatrice Harding, and this is my husband Nathan. We are so glad you are here." The woman's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I was not sure what I would do if this had fallen through." "You are safe here," Nathan said, his voice gentle but firm. "Whatever you are running from, you will find acceptance and protection here. We know what it is like to be starting over." Beatrice slipped her arm through Nathan's, feeling a rush of love and gratitude for this man who had saved her life in every way possible. He looked down at her and smiled, that same warm smile that had made her fall in love with him all those years ago. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "Always," she replied. "As long as home is wherever you are." He kissed her softly, mindful of their audience but unable to resist. "That is the easiest promise I have ever made. You are my home, Beatrice. You and our children. Everything good in my life started the day you stepped off that train." "Everything good in my life started the day you vowed to protect me," Beatrice said. "You gave me more than safety. You gave me love, respect, partnership, and a family. You gave me a life worth living." They gathered their children and headed home, all 5 of them piled into the wagon, with Andrew sitting proudly next to his father, learning to drive the horses. Sarah chattered happily about the wildflowers she had picked, while Thomas drowsed in Beatrice's arms. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and Beatrice felt a profound sense of peace and contentment. The years that followed brought both challenges and joys. There were hard winters when supplies ran low, and there were seasons of plenty. There were illnesses that frightened them, and there were celebrations that brought the whole community together. Nathan served 2 terms in the territorial legislature before deciding to step back and focus on his family and his land. Beatrice's school grew and thrived, eventually becoming one of the finest educational institutions in the territory. They had 2 more children, another daughter named Margaret in 1887 and a son named Daniel in 1889. Their home was always full of laughter and love, a place where children were encouraged to learn and explore and grow. Nathan taught his sons and daughters alike to hunt and fish, to respect the land, to stand up for what was right. Beatrice taught them to read and write, to think critically, to value education and kindness. As their children grew older, Andrew showed an aptitude for law and eventually went back east to attend university, though he always returned to Arizona, unable to stay away from the mountains he loved. Sarah became a teacher like her mother, opening a school in a neighboring settlement. Thomas took over Nathan's timber operation, expanding it into a thriving business. Margaret became a nurse, and Daniel followed his father into politics. Through it all, Nathan and Beatrice remained devoted to each other. Their love, which had begun in crisis and grown through shared challenges, deepened with every passing year. They celebrated their 25th anniversary in 1904, surrounded by their children and grandchildren. "You remember what you promised me that first day?" Beatrice asked as they danced together at their anniversary party. "That no hand would ever harm you again," Nathan replied immediately. "I remember every word of that conversation. I remember everything about that day." "You have kept that promise for 25 years, Beatrice said. "You have kept me safe and loved and cherished. You are my hero, Nathan Harding. You saved my life." "We saved each other," Nathan corrected. "You gave me a reason to live again, Beatrice. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You brought joy and purpose and love into my life. You made me whole." They kissed, not caring that their children and grandchildren were watching and cheering. Some things never got old, and their love for each other was one of those things. In February of 1912, Arizona finally achieved statehood, and Nathan and Beatrice stood together at the ceremony in Phoenix, watching as the 48th star was added to the American flag. They had helped build this state, had raised their family here, had contributed to its growth and development. It was a proud moment for both of them. "We have had a good life," Beatrice said that night as they sat together in their hotel room. "The best life," Nathan agreed. "Every promise I made to you I have tried to keep. Every day I have tried to be worthy of your love." "You have exceeded every promise," Beatrice assured him. "You have been my protector, my partner, my best friend, and my love. I could not have asked for a better husband or a better father to my children." As they grew older, they began to slow down, handing over more responsibilities to their children. They spent their later years in the cabin they had shared for so long, though it had been expanded and modernized over the decades. They watched their grandchildren grow, and eventually their great-grandchildren, always surrounded by family and love. Nathan died peacefully in his sleep in 1925, at the age of 75. He simply went to bed one night holding Beatrice's hand and did not wake up. The doctor said his heart had finally given out, worn down by decades of hard physical labor and a long, full life. Beatrice was devastated but took comfort in the fact that he had not suffered, had not lingered in pain. He had lived a good life and died peacefully at home, which was all anyone could ask for. She continued on without him for 3 more years, still sharp and active despite her age. She spent her time with her children and grandchildren, writing down the story of her life for future generations. She wanted them to know about the brave man who had seen a frightened woman step off a train and vowed to protect her, who had kept that vow every day for 47 years. Beatrice died in early 1928 at the age of 72. She passed away sitting in her favorite chair on the porch of the cabin, looking out at the mountains she had come to love. Her children found her there, peaceful and smiling, as though she was looking at something beautiful that only she could see. They buried her next to Nathan in the small cemetery outside Prescott, under the pine trees with the mountains rising behind them. On her gravestone, her children inscribed the words Nathan had said to her that first day: "No hand will ever harm you again." It was a promise he had kept throughout their life together, and a love that had lasted beyond death. Their descendants continue to live in Arizona to this day, proud of the legacy left by Nathan and Beatrice Harding. The story of how they met, how a mountain man had seen a woman in need and vowed to protect her, how that protection had grown into a love that lasted a lifetime, became part of family legend. It was told and retold to each new generation, a reminder that sometimes the worst moments of our lives can lead us to the best things that will ever happen to us. The cabin still stands in the mountains north of Prescott, maintained by the family as a reminder of where it all began. Visitors can see the main room where Nathan and Beatrice fell in love. the bedroom where their children were born, the porch where they spent countless evenings watching the sunset and planning their future. There is a plaque near the door that tells their story, about the woman who came off the train with a black eye and the mountain man who vowed to protect her. It is a story of second chances, of finding love in unexpected places, of promises kept and vows honored. It is a story that reminds us that true strength is not about dominance or control, but about gentleness and protection. It is a story about what real love looks like, built on trust and respect and partnership. Most importantly, it is a story about hope, about the possibility of starting over, about the power of one person's kindness to change another person's entire life. Nathan had given Beatrice safety and love when she needed it most. Beatrice had given Nathan purpose and joy when he had been merely existing. Together, they had built something beautiful and lasting, a love that endured through decades of challenges and triumphs, a family that continues to honor their memory. Their story began on a train platform in October of 1878, with a frightened woman and a compassionate man who made a simple promise. It ended nearly 50 years later, with a legacy of love that continues to inspire. It is proof that the best love stories are not the dramatic fairy tales, but the quiet, steady devotion of two people who choose each other every single day, who weather life's storms together, who build a life based on mutual respect and genuine affection. Nathan and Beatrice Harding lived the kind of love that most people only dream about, and their story serves as a reminder that such love is possible, that it is worth fighting for, and that it can transform not just two lives, but generations to come. Their love story, which began with violence and fear, ended with peace and joy, proving that it is never too late to start over, that there is always hope for a better future, and that sometimes the person who saves us is the one we least expect to meet. The mountains still stand watch over Prescott, Arizona, just as they did when Nathan first brought Beatrice home. The seasons still change, the wildflowers still bloom in spring, and the snow still falls in winter. But for those who know the story, there is something special about that particular mountainside, about that cabin nestled among the pines. It is a place where love conquered fear, where kindness triumphed over cruelty, where a simple promise made by a good man changed the course of two lives forever. And in the end, is that not what all the best love stories are about? Finding someone who sees us at our worst and chooses to stay. Finding someone who makes promises and keeps them. Finding someone who loves us not despite our scars, but accepts them as part of our story. Finding someone who becomes home. Nathan and Beatrice found all of that and more. They found each other, and in doing so, they found everything they had ever needed. Their love story may have begun in 1878, but it continues to live on in the hearts of their descendants and in the legend of the mountain man, who vowed that no hand would ever harm the woman he loved again, a promise he kept faithfully until his last breath.